Breaking news, Ronda Rousey has finally broken her silence, and what she just revealed about her time in WWE has fans stunned. The baddest woman on the planet isn't holding back anymore. In a shocking new interview, she opens up about a moment so humiliating, so raw, that it nearly destroyed her career and her confidence. What really happened behind the curtain at WrestleMania 34? Why did she walk away at the height of her fame? And what truth has she been hiding all these years? Stay tuned, because once you hear what Ronda just confessed, you'll never look at her WWE career the same again. Make sure to hit subscribe. You're not going to want to miss what comes next. It started quietly, just another YouTube interview buried among dozens of wrestling retrospectives. But within hours, it became the most talked about clip in sports entertainment. Sitting across from an interviewer on Wrestle Insider, Ronda Rousey didn't look like the fierce fighter fans remembered. Her hair was tied back, her expression distant, and her voice low. Then came the question that shifted everything. What was the hardest moment of your WWE career? She hesitated. The room fell silent. And then she dropped the truth that sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. It was WrestleMania 34, she said, her voice trembling. Triple H hit me with a powerbomb, and in that moment, I felt everything crumble. Viewers froze. The clip replayed again and again. Ronda Rousey, once untouchable, confessing that a single move in her debut match left her humiliated, broken, and questioning her place in WWE. It wasn't about pain. It wasn't even about losing. It was about losing control. She described that moment vividly: the roar of the crowd, the blinding lights, and the split second of helplessness as she was lifted and slammed into the mat. Everyone cheered, she said softly, but inside, I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. For a woman who built her legacy on dominance, from Olympic judo to UFC knockouts, that vulnerability was alien. I wasn't the fighter anymore, she admitted. I was just another body being thrown around. The interviewer tried to change the subject, but it was too late. The floodgates had opened. Within hours, social media exploded. #RondaSpeaks trended worldwide. Fans called it the most honest interview in WWE history. Others demanded to know more. What was she hinting at? What happened after that match that was so devastating she'd never talked about it until now? And that's when Ronda said the line that made the entire internet stop scrolling. It wasn't just what happened in the ring that night, it was what came after. Before that fateful night at WrestleMania 34, Ronda Rousey was untouchable. She wasn't just a superstar, she was a phenomenon. Born in Riverside, California, she fought her way out of hardship, trained through pain, and turned herself into one of the most dominant athletes on the planet. An Olympic medal in judo, an undefeated run in the UFC, the first female fighter to headline pay-per-views and sell out arenas. To the public, she was the definition of strength, the woman who smashed through the glass ceiling and made the fight world take women seriously. So when WWE came calling, it seemed like a perfect fit. Ronda was already larger than life, and Vince McMahon saw her as the missing link between combat sports and sports entertainment. Fans called her signing the biggest crossover since Brock Lesnar. The company promoted her debut like an event, not a match. She wasn't just joining, she was arriving. Cameras followed her everywhere. Posters plastered every arena, and headlines read, "Ronda Rousey takes over WWE." When WrestleMania 34 arrived, over 78,000 fans filled the Superdome in New Orleans, and millions more watched from around the world. It was Ronda's first match, a mixed tag team bout with Olympic hero Kurt Angle against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. The crowd was electric. From the moment her music hit, you could feel the weight of history. Ronda moved with precision, power, and intensity. She threw punches, flipped opponents, and locked in her signature armbar with the confidence of a champion. When Stephanie tapped out, the building erupted. Commentators called it one of the greatest debuts in wrestling history. But beneath the cheers, something inside Ronda shifted. The cameras caught the smile, but not the storm behind her eyes. That night should have been her triumph, a moment to prove she belonged. Instead, it became the moment she began to question everything. The world saw her rise to the top of wrestling, but Ronda would later admit that was the night she started to fall apart, and the cracks only grew from there. Ronda's description of WrestleMania 34 was haunting. What fans remembered as a flawless debut, she recalled as a moment of deep humiliation. In her interview, she explained that everything seemed perfect until the spot with Triple H. "He lifted me," she said, her eyes distant, "and for that 1 second, I wasn't in control. When he slammed me down, it wasn't just physical. It felt like my identity hit the mat with me." For those who don't live inside the world of professional wrestling, a powerbomb looks simple, just another choreographed move. But for Ronda, who had built her entire reputation on control, precision, and dominance, that one scripted move shattered her illusion of power. "In the UFC, I was the predator," she said quietly. "In WWE, I became the prey." At first, Ronda brushed it off. She played along with the storylines, smiled for the cameras, and pretended it didn't bother her. But the footage of that move went viral within hours. Fans replayed it over and over, dissecting every frame. Most praised the athleticism, but a dark corner of the internet twisted it into something cruel. Within days, social media was flooded with vulgar comments, mocking her, demeaning her, turning that one split second of vulnerability into a meme. "I thought I could handle it," Ronda said, holding back tears. "But it got disgusting. People were saying things I couldn't even repeat. I wasn't being criticized as a performer. I was being degraded as a woman." That was the moment she realized the audience that once cheered her could also destroy her. She wasn't just fighting opponents in the ring anymore. She was fighting an invisible enemy, one that hid behind screens and username. "It stopped being fun," she admitted. "I started dreading every match, every tweet, every camera. That one night never left me. It followed me everywhere." The powerbomb that made her a WWE icon also became the ghost that haunted her long after she walked backstage. It wasn't just a move, it was the moment she lost control of her story. What came next was something no championship belt could prepare her for. The internet turned savage. Overnight, Ronda Rousey went from hero to headline fodder. The clip of Triple H's powerbomb spread across social media with millions of views. But it wasn't admiration driving the numbers, it was mockery. Within hours, wrestling forums, Reddit threads, and Twitter timelines filled with crude comments, twisting the moment into something obscene. "It stopped being about wrestling," Ronda said in the interview. "It became about humiliation." The cruelest phrase, the one that spread like wildfire, wasn't just disrespectful. It was dehumanizing. People took a scripted wrestling move and turned it into a sexualized joke, repeated endlessly until it became a stain on her reputation. "They weren't critiquing my performance," she said bitterly. "They were laughing at me, at my body, at my pain." For Ronda, who had spent her entire life fighting for respect in male-dominated arenas, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. Fans might forget how quickly admiration can turn to cruelty, but Ronda never did. "I'd wake up and see my face in memes I didn't consent to," she admitted. "They took something that broke me inside and made it entertainment." Her social media pages flooded with thousands of comments a day, half of them vile, some too graphic to repeat. She tried ignoring them at first, turning off notifications, logging out, but the words found her anyway. Her husband, Travis Brown, reportedly urged her to walk away. Friends noticed her growing withdrawn. She stopped smiling, one insider recalled. It was like she was living under attack. What made it worse was the silence from the WWE. No public statement, no acknowledgement, not even a quiet show of support. To Ronda, it was confirmation of what she'd begun to suspect. Inside the machine, you were only protected while you made them money. Once controversy hit, you were on your own. "I thought I was strong enough," she said quietly, "but when millions of people mock you for being vulnerable, that kind of pain doesn't heal fast." And for Ronda, it didn't heal at all. It only deepened. Behind the camera flashes and thunderous entrances, Ronda Rousey's world was quietly collapsing. By 2019, her face was on every WWE poster. But behind that fierce glare was exhaustion, doubt, and a growing sense that she was trapped in something she no longer controlled. In her interview, she confessed, "That wasn't me out there anymore. I was performing strength I didn't feel. I was pretending to be unstoppable, while inside, I was falling apart. At first, Ronda believed she could push through. She was no stranger to pressure. She'd fought through broken bones, concussions, and public defeats before. But WWE wasn't just physical. It was psychological warfare. The grind of over 200 shows a year, the jet lag, the endless rehearsals, the creative rewrites. It stripped away her peace of mind one show at a time. In UFC, she said, you fight 3 times a year. You train, you recover, you breathe. In WWE, you never breathe. You wake up in a new city, a new crowd, a new storyline, and you're expected to smile like you're living the dream. That dream quickly became a nightmare. The toxic online ridicule from WrestleMania 34 hadn't died down. It followed her to every arena, every meet and greet, every post-match interview. People yelled that phrase at me during entrances, she admitted. They thought it was funny, but it wasn't a joke to me. It was bullying, and it came from my own audience. Behind the scenes, Ronda began to question her role in the company. She pitched storylines that explored real emotion, betrayal, struggle, redemption, but was told to stick to being the badass. Her creativity was boxed in by corporate scripting. They didn't want the real Ronda, she explained. They wanted the character, the perfect image, the unstoppable woman who never breaks. But she did break. In private moments, she broke down in tears. Her husband, Travis Brown, watched helplessly as the strong, fearless woman he knew came home each night drained and quiet. She'd stare at the floor, he later said in an interview. The spark was gone. The final straw came after WrestleMania 35. Ronda lost the title in a triple threat match against Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, the first ever women's main event in WrestleMania history. On the outside, it was a triumph for women's wrestling, but for Ronda, it marked the end of something inside her. I should have been proud, she said, but all I felt was relief that it was over. Not long after, she packed her bags, left the WWE circuit, and disappeared from the spotlight. Officially, she cited family plans. Unofficially, she was escaping. The critics thought they'd forced her out. The truth was darker. She was already gone long before the cameras stopped rolling. When Ronda stepped away from WWE, fans assumed it was temporary, a break to focus on her family. But her interview revealed it wasn't time she needed. It was distance. She described those final months as a blur of fake smiles and real pain. The world saw her as a superstar living the dream, but behind closed doors, the toll of the schedule, the mental fatigue, and the constant online torment were eating her alive. Ronda explained that the WWE lifestyle wasn't built for healing. It was built for performance. You can't have a bad day, she said. You can't break down. You can't even process what's happening to you because there's another flight, another city, another crowd waiting. Unlike the UFC, where fighters have time to recover between bouts, WWE's relentless grind pushed her body and mind to the limit. She admitted there were nights she'd cry in hotel rooms, not from physical pain, but from the pressure of pretending to be fine. Even backstage, she felt isolated. People think it's all camaraderie, she said, but behind the curtain, it's competition. Everyone's fighting for airtime, for approval, for survival. She talked about the constant creative frustration, her storylines being rewritten mid-tour, her matches cut short to make room for other segments. They wanted the Ronda Rousey name, she sighed, not the Ronda Rousey truth. It wasn't just about career burnout, it was identity erosion. For years, she'd been defined by dominance, by control, precision, perfection. Now, every flaw was amplified. Every stumble turned into a headline. I felt like a product, she said, not a person. And when she finally tried to speak up, to ask for a break, to explain that the pressure was suffocating her, she was told to push through. In her words, that's when I knew it was over. I didn't want to die trying to make people cheer. By the time she walked out of WWE in 2019, Ronda wasn't leaving to rest. She was leaving to survive. It took years for Ronda Rousey to finally open up about what really happened, but when she did, it hit the wrestling world like a shockwave. In that recent YouTube interview, the tone wasn't rehearsed or promotional. It was raw. Her voice cracked, her eyes watered, and for once, there was no character to hide behind. I kept everything bottled up, she said softly. I thought if I showed weakness, they'd say I didn't belong. But silence was killing me. The interviewer leaned in as Ronda described the emotional aftermath of her WWE run. She admitted that the toxic comments and isolation triggered something deeper, a sense of worthlessness she hadn't felt since the early days of her judo career. When you've spent your life being the strong one, she explained, people forget that you still feel pain. For Ronda, the constant online ridicule, the corporate pressure to stay perfect, and the unrelenting travel schedule fused into something unbearable. Every time I stepped into that ring, she said, I felt like I was fighting ghosts, not opponents. But what truly shocked fans was her confession that she almost quit entertainment altogether. I was ready to disappear, she said. No cameras, no fighting, no spotlight. I wanted to just be Ronda, not Ronda Rousey. Those words carried the weight of a woman who'd spent her entire adult life under scrutiny. For years, she had been branded the baddest woman on the planet, a title that left no room for vulnerability. You're not allowed to cry when they call you that, she whispered, but sometimes I did. She also spoke about the silence from WWE during her lowest moments. No one checked in, she said. No one asked if I was okay. You give everything to that company, but when you break, they move on to the next storyline. Her voice hardened as she added, they build you up to be indestructible until it's more profitable to watch you fall. Still, amid the pain, Ronda found something powerful, freedom. By speaking out, she reclaimed her narrative. I'm not ashamed anymore, she said. That powerbomb didn't ruin me. It revealed me. Fans flooded the comments section with messages of support, thanking her for her honesty. For the first time in years, Ronda wasn't a headline or a meme. She was human again. And as she wiped away tears and looked straight into the camera, she left viewers with one final truth. The toughest fight I ever had wasn't in a ring or an octagon. It was fighting to love myself again. After her emotional interview went viral, the wrestling world found itself facing a reckoning. Ronda Rousey's confession wasn't just another celebrity tell-all. It was a mirror held up to an industry built on spectacle and silence. For years, WWE had pushed the narrative of larger-than-life superstars, unbreakable, fearless, unflinching. But Ronda's voice shattered that illusion. Behind the fireworks and the music, she said, there are people breaking down, people who smile for the crowd and cry in the locker room. The fallout was immediate. Fans who once hurled insults at her online began posting apologies, admitting they never realized how deep their words had cut. On wrestling forums, the phrase "Triple H eats her," once used to humiliate her, became a reminder of how toxic online culture can be. Even a few WWE insiders began to speak anonymously, confirming that mental health had long been ignored behind the curtain. If you can walk, you can perform, one former producer said. That's been the motto for years. Ronda's revelation forced change. Quietly, WWE began introducing mandatory wellness check-ins, bringing in counselors for talent, and reevaluating their travel schedule. It wasn't official policy, at least not publicly, but the shift was noticeable. The company that once brushed off emotional burnout was now being forced to confront it, all because one woman dared to tell the truth. Meanwhile, Ronda withdrew from the noise. She stopped doing press, turned down film offers, and focused on her family and peace. Living with her husband Travis Brown and their daughter Leia Kia, she traded arenas for quiet mornings on their ranch. For the first time in a long time, she told the interviewer, I wake up and don't have to be anyone. I can just be me. But even in peace, the story isn't finished. Whispers began circulating that Ronda is working on a tell-all memoir, a detailed, unfiltered account of her journey from judo to UFC, from WWE stardom to near-emotional collapse. Sources close to her say it will include behind-the-scenes stories from her wrestling career that were never meant to see the light of day. She's not bitter, a friend said. She's just ready to set the record straight. Fans speculate whether she'll ever step back into a WWE ring, but Ronda herself seems unsure. I still love wrestling, she admitted, but love doesn't mean you have to go back to what broke you. Her focus now is healing, not just for herself, but for the next generation of wrestlers who will walk the same path. And perhaps that's the most powerful legacy of all. Not Not the titles, not the accolades, but the courage to say what no one else would. Ronda Rousey reminded the world that strength isn't just about fighting through pain. It's about standing up and saying, "This hurt me, and I survive." Her words changed the conversation, and in doing so, she proved that even the toughest fighter in the world can still have the biggest heart. Today, Ronda Rousey's story stands as more than a wrestling headline. It's a wake-up call. What began as a humiliating moment in the ring became the catalyst for a global discussion about mental health, online cruelty, and the real cost of fame. Her decision to speak out didn't just reclaim her dignity, it reshaped how fans see the people behind the personas. "I used to think being tough meant never breaking," she said. "Now I know real toughness is telling the truth, even when it hurts." Whether she ever returns to WWE or not, her legacy is secure. She shattered barriers in the UFC, made history in wrestling, and then broke one last wall: the silence around pain. Her story reminds us that even the strongest among us bleed, doubt, and heal. And as the screen fades to black, one message remains. Ronda Rousey didn't walk away defeated. She walked away free.